Okay, I think we're good. We'll get ready to go here in just a second. Let me pull up a couple of things. Sorry for a little delay. We got a little delay here. Got a lot going on. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. My name is Wade Lightheart, and I'm here from the Prosperity and Health Alliance. And I'm excited today because, well, this is a little bit different departure from our normal training. As you know, lately in the Prosperity and Health Alliance, of course, if you haven't got the whole format, or you're looking for a complete online education system on how to get started in your enagic business, go to prosperityhealthalliance.com. Go through enter in to get my free training, and you'll be sent emails directly to you or any team member that signs up to that, which is an independent step-by-step process that goes over 12 weeks to teach you everything that you need to know about the starting a enagic business, where to look, policies, procedures, what are the best resources, all that stuff. It's a great resource. It's open to all enagic distributors, and it's a service that we provide from the Prosperity and Health Alliance. Now today, we're going to talk about something that's really, really important. And it may not be initially obvious in your business to start, but as you grow your business, inevitably you're going to run into these type of situations, and that's why we're putting that forward. You're also going to run into these resolutions in life. It's basically what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about conflict resolution in your life and in your business. Well, why is that important? Well, oftentimes we're in conflict, or we have a challenge within our business. And when you're in any kind of business, you are going to run into this, whether that's with people in your organization, whether that's with distributors who are out there maybe on the same team but competing for the same prospects. It can happen between employees, or it can happen at your work. It can happen in your home. Basically, the whole human condition is fraught with conflict. And what is conflict? First, let's define conflict. Conflict is where there is a competition of ideas, and oftentimes a competition of outcome that people would like to have. And everybody, for the most part, has some sort of self-serving agenda, and that may compete against someone else's agenda, and therefore there is a conflict, and that can be handled in a lot of ways. It can be avoided, it can be dealt with head-on, it can be dealt subversively through hearsay and gossip, it can be handled through aggressive nature, whether that is verbal aggression or physical aggression, or legal aggression, or there can be a process of mediation. And mediation is basically where a third party comes in to your life to offer a resolution between what appears to be two conflicting ideas or two conflicting ways of thinking. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important to understand this because you can spend a lot of time, energy, both physically, financially, also logistically in your own life, caught in conflict. And there are people who are paralyzed by conflict within their family or their business for years and decades, and carry a lot of resentment. And oftentimes it's just simply a deep misunderstanding. So what are the keys? And I'm bringing this up because I've just helped navigate several different conflicts in my business. And over the last year, I had a couple of very deep conflicts that had to be resolved. And I'm now in the process of mediating several different conflicts between friends of mine and business partners of mine over the last while. So I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a great idea to share this. And I hope it's a valuable thing to you, because if you are going to build a great enagic business, invariably you are going to come to conflict. So the first thing to do when you're in an idea, a competition of ideas, or how do you get to resolution, is first is consider there are other possibilities to what you think. So you need to, without making someone wrong or without moving to the idea to punish or to subtract. You need to look at things objectively, and you need to invite discussion and to truly listen. I recommend putting your points down in a written format first before you initiate discussion, okay? And the reason why you would consider your part of the argument or your part of the consideration would be part number 2. And that is, you need to ask yourself, am I being clear and clean about my behavior? Am I entering into this act in good faith? Have I violated some sort of previous agreement? And if so, why have I done so? Or has the person consciously or unconsciously violated agreement that I'm in conflict with? And what are the consequences and outcomes? And what are the potential motives if they're not malicious? So the initial assumption is to consider that someone is being malicious, someone is taking from me, someone is out to destroy me, someone is out to violate me, someone out to, these are the automatic responses of the ego, that there is somebody attacking me. And you need to remove past that concept. Rather, realize that there is competing ideologies here and that there is an opportunity for resolution. Third thing, especially when dealing with your own behavior, you need to avoid rationalizations and justification. It's very easy to rationalize your own behavior and to justify arguments, justifying aggression, justifying your point of view. But the reality is there's 2 or 3 or oftentimes more than that, depending on how big the group is or how much the conflict is, which we see in political situations right now between alt and left and right, you know. And the realize is that you need to be able to move away from rationalizing your own behavior and justifying your own behavior before you do anything. If you don't, if you're there because ultimately you need to hold yourself to a higher standard than maybe you hold the person that you're in conflict with. Okay. Next, number 4. You got to separate facts from emotion, okay? So when something doesn't go the way we anticipate, or we feel that something has happened or someone's transgressed against us, oftentimes there is an emotional response, especially if you have a sore spot. I knew it. I told them so. I figured that would happen. I know that person is X, Y, Z, and we draw up a bunch of associative memories that support our belief system, and we avoid anything that would conflict with that in that moment, and we get very angry or resentful, or we lash out, or we go into silence, and all of these type of things. And bottom line is we're coloring the situation with emotions. Oftentimes we're running out stories, big time stories, out storylines that don't actually exist, and that also leads to rationalization and not being clean about our behavior or not considering what other people's point of view is. So we need to separate that. And how do we do that? Oftentimes it's very difficult to do that, because at first we have to accept that maybe there's a possibility that I'm misinterpreting all the information or all the data, right? So you need to open that up. And how do you do that? Well, you seek out professional counsel. You seek out mediation. And in that mediation, that party needs to be neutral and not have a vested interest. For example, oftentimes people will lawyer up. One lawyer is being paid by you. Another lawyer is being paid by someone else. That lawyer is telling them, we can win this case, it's a lock, blah, 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 because they have an invested interest of going to trial, or they have an invested interest of drawing this out. You see this all the time in divorces, that people will get lawyered up and they fight it all out until the money's all gone. They do this in business too. And then at the end, when the pain is added up and the corollary damages up, both the conflicting parties sit down at the table and negotiate with much less than was at stake than before. So why not go right to mediation as soon as you come to what looks like irresolvable differences? Irresolvable differences are often just a question of motivation on both parties and their inability to find rational solutions. So sometimes you find yourself in a conflict with someone who is not rational, who is not reasonable, and who is inflexible. That's difficult. I've been there. I understand that. I've probably been that person in other conflicts. So we have to realize we have to be humble and have some humility, even if those situations, and then you have to do what's best within that situation. And oftentimes it results in a cutting your losses. So thinking about what is the potential cost of me fighting this out, is winning more important than being than a peaceful life. And that's another thing. So you can win sometimes, but winning might mean destroying that person, destroying that person's life, their livelihood, or whatever. And is that really worth it? Is that worth the cost? Do you want to be part of that? Do you want to avoid punitive behavior? Because punitive behavior always has consequences. The people that you take judgment against, they'll still resent you, and that can come back and bite you in the butt, so to speak, later on in ways that you can't possibly imagine, because whether you like it or not, the universe is watching what you are doing. It is. Pay attention. Now, so when you're seeking out mediation, you want neutral parties, someone that's, maybe has a motivation for the resolution to happen, but are not necessarily part and partial to either one of the groups. So I've helped a number of people help through mediation, and then recently I was in a conflict, in a very distinct conflict, that I had a mediator help navigate that so we could come to some form of reasonable, rational solutions. Okay? And what this does is it can assist in the exercises that I laid out first, like consider other possibilities, being clear about your behavior, and avoid rationalizations and justifications, right? Almost all decisions based out of fear and emotionality are the wrong choices. So by getting a mediation, often they will take you through the process for you to write out your points, make your points valid, and the other person's points valid. And oftentimes you'll start to work with commonalities as opposed from opposites. 6, this is really important, and I had an epiphany about this recently, was really profound. There was a couple of areas of conflict in my life, 3 areas of conflict in my life. Some were direct and some were indirect. Those are involving people. And I realized that Einstein once said, you can't solve a problem based on the intellect that you created it with. In other words, you need to move above the paradigm of conflict. And this is a paradigm blindness. I see this person as an enemy. I see them as an adversary. I see them as a taking from me. I see this sort of thing. And you need to move past that, and you need to move into a concept of, well, what would be a solution that transcends me getting even or me getting right, or that person winning or that and me losing or whatever? What would be an option where we could find the opportunity within this? And just by asking those questions, I think you come to a better place. But the bottom line is, if you're just seeing it as a conflict and irresolvable, then it is. And there's always an option to move to something else. So the 7th part, or the 7th step of this, would be choosing curiosity over aggression. So let's say you need to engage with somebody that is involved in a conflict with you, or a position of unjustness, or the parties involved. Rather than accuse, seek to inquire. Inquire and ask the parties involved so that you can get to the bottom. So this requires a certain level of patience. It requires a certain level of prudence, and it also requires a certain amount of temperance, that you can say, you know what, I'm going to suspend my emotions, my anger, my justification, my victimhood, all these sort of things, and I'm going to choose, well, let's ask. And you reach out to a person, hey, I want to clarify a couple of things that in regards to X, Y, Z. Maybe you can help me here, and that way it's less aggressive in its tone. If you come out and say, you did this and you did that and that, you set up your situation for going into your party, going into defensive mode, and number one, you're not going to get as much data as you could. Number 2, you're certainly not going to get any goodwill. And number 3, you're going to be seen as an adversary as opposed to someone who is a co-problem solver, co-creator of solutions. Okay. Next, you have an option, and this is the one that really hit me, and that is to choose love over anger. So what does that mean? Well, anytime we're in a conflict, there's a wise man once said, David Hawkins once said, that war is when the prevalence of falsehood, or when falsehood prevails. In other words, when parties are operating out of some aspect of untruth, And that's when the prevalence of war. The same thing as anger and conflict. And often this brings up anger. Anger is an energy that is a biological component to invigorate and energize the system in the act of defense or aggression. It's an emotional state that can make you act without thinking because it's a survival mechanism, essentially, of a lower state consciousness. And it never, almost always causes damage unforeseen when you act out of anger. I've acted out of anger lots of times, and oftentimes I've regretted those decisions, particularly with loved ones, family members, business partners, things like that, right? So you get the option to choose love. So what does love look like? So first off, if you choose, I ask myself, what is the most loving thing that I could do in this moment to resolve this issue? What would be the kindest thing that I could do? What would be the perspective I could take on if I'm operating from a position of love, a position of benevolence, a position of compassion, of empathy, and of understanding? What would this situation look like? Immediately, as soon as I adopt that paradigm, I move out of anger and conflict and fear and guilt and denial and shame and all those negative emotions, pride, and I move to a position of courage. I move to a position of willingness, or at least neutrality, right? And then maybe rationality, and then ultimately to love, if you're using the Hawkins chart. And ultimately, where does that lead to? It leads to peace, which is at the level of where the ultimate state of maybe human existence would be. If you're in a state of peace, no matter what happens. These are recognized by the saints around the world, who often had difficult lives, who often were involved in a lot of conflict, but were able to maintain peace. So how do you maintain your peace of mind? How do you operate in this situation? How do you move away from resentment? How do you move away from anger? Well, you choose love. You choose that. What would be the most loving thing I could do? What is the most loving way to look at this situation for myself and for other people? And because if you love yourself, oftentimes you can admit to your own faults. You can admit to your own emotional reactions. Let's say you've reacted poorly in a situation or got upset in a situation. Well, you can be loving to yourself and say, well, you know what? I was kind of emotional. I got tracked. You can apologize to that and say to the person, hey, you know what? I really reacted poorly to that. And here's why I did, because I was scared and I was prideful and I felt that, this sort of stuff. And then you start open up and the other person, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And all of a sudden you open up this opportunity, which happens oftentimes between your friends or your business partners, in a way that really invites divinity, invites a whole new state of being, a whole new state of awareness. So I encourage you, if you're in conflict right now, and some of you who are listening to this are going to be in conflict, choose love. Make it about love. I think you'll be surprised of how much that can transform the situation almost instantaneously. 9. So what does that lead to? Well, it means choosing a discussion rather than an argument. So what does that mean? Well, if I come out accusing, if I come out making declarations which may not be based entirely on facts, entirely on information. So you need a period of gathering facts and information. First level, you need to accept and you need to listen to what that other person might be, even if they're becoming argumentative towards you or attacking you. You need to be able to maintain your calm, maintain your cool. And if you can't, remove yourself from the situation until you can deal with this. Get assistance on it. Whatever you need to do. For me, I try and clear some space and time and reflect on it and meditate on it and try and find a higher way. But this is very, very, very key. There's an old saying that said, "Fools discuss and fools argue and wise men discuss." And we live in a world today where people are arguing on social media as opposed to discussing. In other words, one of my teachers, Hawkins, says they're saying, "You don't have to hate chocolate to love vanilla." What that means is you can prefer vanilla or you can prefer chocolate, but that doesn't mean that you have to hate a different flavor or a different point of view. You can look at that point of view and say, well, that's their point of view. I'm willing to listen to it and understand it and compete. That was the whole idea of the different parties in the Republic of the United States of America, which now have skewed to these two kind of alternate realities, which are aggressively attacking each other and forgetting that they're part of a political process that has created the wealthiest, most productive nation in the world. And I see people abandoning this on social media, whether you are a supporter of Democrats or a supporter of Republicans. People are scared to publish if they're in support of one party or the other, or they viciously attack people that are in another group. And that just doesn't make any sense. That is totally the antithesis of what we are to be wise and rational and to use these things. When you degrade one's behavior to make and condone and accept and promote violent ideologies and conflictual, you can be resolute, and that may cause other people to be angry with you, but that doesn't mean that you have to take on that anger as personal. You can see them as unfortunately not able to recognize that situation, right? And hopefully you're not in an aspect of danger, and if you are, remove yourself from that danger rather than engage in it. There's an old thing, don't resist evil, just move away from it. Because oftentimes in the resistance, you can put yourself into trouble. Okay, so you want to find a way to enter into discussion, and the best way to do that is through curiosity and through a loving way of communicating. Okay? Now, when you enter into the discussion part inside of a confliction or going to a mediation, how do you find mediation? First, let's find the things that you can agree upon first. And oftentimes that is the agree, hey, you want to have a healthy, successful business, correct? Yes, I want to have a healthy, successful business too. Great. You want to have a quick resolution that doesn't take up a lot of emotional or financial resources, correct? Yes, I want that too. Great. Let's find some common ground first to recognize you are two human beings. You're not ogres or monsters. You're just people with conflicting ideals about how to arrive to a different outcome and on who that outcome might benefit. But I can tell you one thing, resolution is going to benefit both of you more than conflict, no matter how you slice it. Okay? So find things that you can agree upon first. 11, look at the best case scenario and look at the worst case scenario. I think it's important before you go even, maybe that could have been before that one, and that is, run out a number of different scenarios. What happens if we get into a protracted, long war about this, a fight, a legal battle? How much time is that going to cost? How much money is that going to cost? How much happiness is that going to cost? What is the cost of a prolonged conflict about something? Then you can look at, well, how deeply am I willing to fight for this thing? What am I willing to give up? Am I willing to sacrifice those things that may be involved in winning? And is winning more important? Is the destruction of that person's ideology is more important than peace? And I'm going to recommend and suggest you choose peace over winning. And that's a big, big, big piece for people. Peace over winning. Because winning is not necessarily peaceful. We celebrate winning in our culture, but that doesn't mean it's the only outcome. Okay, so look at all the scenarios. Simple scenario, easy scenario, difficult scenario, more difficult scenario, absolute, unresolved conflict that's never ending. Because those are possibilities depending on how they go. Okay, and try and think of what is the corollary cost? What are the unseen costs, the unseen opportunity cost of prolonged discomfort and conflict? Okay, 11. That's it. Okay, we did that. Look at the best case scenario, worst case scenario, and try and work from the best case scenario backwards. Now, 12. Try to see something for the other person's point of view. If you can do that, then oftentimes that opens the door in your own mind to resolving, not seeing the person as an ogre or someone trying to damage you or someone that is limited at least, right? You can do that. That's not always easy, but it's really important. Okay, and at least you can understand, even if they don't agree with them, you can understand why someone would come to those conclusions or why they would take actions that you feel to be inflammatory or against you or argumentative. Next thing, let your emotions subside before you communicate. I can't say this, for me, it's oftentimes I don't process emotions very quickly. It's usually several days that I need to sit with something. I need to run out the scenarios of something. I need to write out the things. I need to consider all those situations. I often would seek counsel from other people who I trust, who know me, know my character defaults or my challenges or the areas I'm limited in, or provide insight for me that I might not have available to me, or might not be aware of, or might not comprehend. Seek out expertise. Seek out independent expertise counsel, again, that's neutral and can provide you some of the potential side effects of your decisions or outcomes of those decisions, right? And oftentimes you want to do this, and you also want to get to a state where you can look at all the possible areas, rationalize those out, consider that, get your counsel, all that stuff, and then enter into discussion with this person or these individuals who you might be having a conflict with or an argument with. And that's kind of like the cooling off phase. And oftentimes in a negotiation, particularly if you're somebody who is very aggressive, you might have to come to the table, and then when it gets too much, you see yourself getting emotional, step away again, then come back again. And sometimes it takes a process. As you go through it more and more, you get better and better at it. So it's a new way of looking at things, right? 14, communicate in a nonviolent way. Try to avoid making threats. Try to avoid making accusations. Try and avoid making people wrong. See people as ignorant to what the outcomes of their actions, or ignorant to the effects of negligence, or the ignorance to the effects of arguments or aggressive behaviors. But try not to be accusatory or using where there's a book out there called Nonviolent Communication. And this is an area that I work on and struggle with. I'm very direct. I sometimes can be seen as conflictive, and I'd want to get to the truth. And I have a lot of these things in here where I'll take things less personally than other people. But you have to be aware of where that person is. And I like to go for that solution as quickly as possible, as whatever. And sometimes that means in certain cases you're choosing not to engage with someone because the consequences of doing it, they're just so resolute in their behavior. You might have tried, attempted, and sometimes you just have to let people go, and that's it. And they're just unwilling to be resolved, and that's okay. But you can do so in a non-violent way. And when you do that, you don't regret your behaviors. Anytime that you get glee or satisfaction, watch for satisfaction about you passing on some sort of punitive damage onto somebody else. If you feel a justification and a rationalization, or that little, ooh, I got them inside yourself, you can bet that you're probably not operating in your highest and best good. And it's a good idea to avoid that. And then finally, when you communicate, find the opportunity within the challenge. Opportunity often comes disguised as challenges and conflict in your life. Whether it's in relationship, or whether it's in business, or with your friends, your spouse, your kids. Look for the opportunity. Basically what's happening here is you have a conflict of ideas. And often if you're operating from a position that's not right or not wrong, you can often look at this, and if you can move to that higher level of what is the opportunity here, what am I not seeing, what is the way to look at this in a different way, oftentimes you can actually listen to that person, and they can listen to you, and you can realize, oh my goodness, I totally see what you're talking about. And you can totally see what I'm talking about. What is the opportunity? And you move from conflict to cooperation in the solution. That is the ultimate level of mediation. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again when mediation is chosen over outright war and argument and discussion. So if you want to resolve a question, I would encourage you to deal with this. It's going to be a tool that you can use in your business. You can use it in your personal life. You can practice in your personal life and then apply it in your business, or vice versa. But these 15 points are a way that I've used successfully to help navigate the inevitable challenges that will happen within your organization, within your groups, within your business, within your life. And so that is number one, consider other possibilities to what you think. Number two, are you being clear and clean about your behavior? 3, avoid rationalizations and justification. 4, separate facts from emotion. 5, seek out mediation. Neutral parties can assist in above exercises and move you out of personal outcome bias. 6, do not try to solve problems with the same level of intellect that created them. Try to rise above paradigm blindness. The next one, 7, choose curiosity over aggression. 8, choose love over anger. 9, choose discussion rather than argument. 10, find things that you can agree upon first. 11, look at the best case scenario, look at the worst case scenario. 12, try to see things from the other person's point of view. 13, let the emotion subside before you communicate. 14, communicate in a nonviolent way. And 15, find the opportunity within the challenge. Opportunity often comes disguised as a challenge, as a conflict. or as an obstacle. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be posting this in the Prosperity and Health Alliance. You get an email about this. And I hope that you will leverage this in your own life and use this as a tool to move forward in your life and inside your business, because it can make a big difference in your life. And it's been transformative for me, and I hope that you benefit from that. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Prosperity and Health Alliance. If you want more training, go to prosperityandhealthalliance.com. Be happy to help you out.